Hi guys, in this video clip, I'm going to demonstrate how to calculate minimum risk portfolio and also how to draw an efficient frontier for investment combinations between two properties using MS Excel spreadsheet. Before you start watching this video clip, I highly recommend you to watch an earlier video clip about general concept of efficient frontier. And in that earlier video clip, it illustrates general steps of drawing an efficient frontier. The present video clip, following the same general steps, 5 steps of drawing an efficient frontier for investment properties F and G. So if you recall, the first step we are going to do is to determine the minimum risk portfolio for these two properties. And the minimum risk portfolio sits on the leftmost side of the efficient frontier. So for the two properties, property F and property G, we have assumed expected return for each property, and we have risk for each property. The covariance of each property between the two properties is also assumed at 0.019%. So these figures are the same as those shown on the lecture slide for example 4. So the illustration of drawing an efficient frontier is for the example 4 on the lecture slide. So now first, we are going to determine the minimum risk portfolio for these two properties. We first calculate a weight for property F that minimizing the risk for this portfolio. So we will fill up the cell over here, and this is where we are going to apply the formula for the weight of a property in order to minimize the risk of the portfolio. So following the formula on lecture slide, and we do equal, and if we are going to determine the weight for F, minimizing the risk for this portfolio, so we start with the risk of property G and raise it to the power of 2, and then minus covariance between the two properties, and then we have parentheses, then divided by risk of property F raised to the power of 2 plus risk for property G raised to the power of 2, then minus 2 times the covariance. Then we have the weight for property F minimizing the risk of this property. So under the table and here, weight of F minimizing risk, we just copy this number down. And the weight of G, because now after we determine the weighting of F, weighting of G is calculated as 100% or 1 minus the weighting of F, right? Because the investments into these two properties will be 100%. So, and if there's, we do need to keep 2 decimal places for this number, and we can edit it under font, and the decimal places choose 2. Okay, so now we have this weighting for each properties that determines the minimum risk portfolio. And this minimum risk portfolio will be the starting point of the efficient frontier. So on the risk and the expected return space, where to place the starting point of this minimum risk portfolio. So this will be determined by the risk and the expected return of this minimum risk portfolio. So now the next, we are going to apply formulas we learned in week 1 and 2 topic about expected return and the risk for an investment portfolio. So for expected return between these two properties, and we just apply the formula that we learned before, equals weighting of property F times expected return for F, then plus weighting for property G times expected return for property G. Then that comes about expected return. We still format the font to decimal place too. Then risk. For risk of our portfolio, and we have still equal weighting of F raised to the power of 2 times risk of F raised to the power of 2 plus weighting for G raised to the power of 2 times risk of G raised to the power of 2 plus 2 times weighting for each property F times property G, then times the covariance. Then, before we press enter, we need to take the square root for the overall term. So, raise it to the power of 1 over 2 or 0.5. Then we have risk for this minimum risk portfolio. So we have decided the risk and expected return for this minimum risk portfolio. Right. So we have achieved that. And the next step 3 is about increase the weighting of the property that has high expected return from its weight for this minimum risk portfolio. So that means which property has higher expected return between the two, and we know property F has higher expected return than property G. So we are going to increase the weighting of property F from its 90%. So from 90%, 19.38% is its weighting for the minimum risk portfolio. So the next, we will choose other optional weighting for property F that must be above this 19.38%. If anyone decrease the weighting of property F below 19.38%, and you will get a portfolio that's not optimal. So that means you will have a lower expected return than the other portfolio, even though you are exposed to the same level of risk. So that's the beauty of efficient frontier. It guarantees your return, and it guarantees the risk is compensated by good return. So that's the optimal choice that you can have based on the level of risk that you are going to choose. So that's the reason in step 3, and we will make sure weighting to property F should be above 19.38%. So in this case, we can choose whatever 30%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, 70%, or whatever. So you can do, for your investment combination, you can do some experiment and in order to draw a quite smooth curve. And for this case, I will choose the weighting of 40%, 70%, and there must be the last weighting have to be 100% investment into F, because that determines the rightmost hand of this efficient frontier. So after we choose all this weighting, then we are going to calculate the risk and the expected return for these optional investment portfolios. So first, we copy down those weighting from the upper table and for property F. And then for risk, we will be calculating the risk and the expected return for each combination of these portfolios. So for property F, we have weighting on the on this row is 40%, and the weighting for property G will be 1 minus 40%, so will be 60%. So we'll still use the formula that we calculated for the risk for the property portfolios before. So we have weighting property F raised to the power of 2 times the risk for property F raised to the power of 2. Now we can also still see the upper line of this equation as the same as we can see in the cell. So then we plus the weighting for property G is 1 minus the weighting for property F. Then raise it to the power of 2. Then times the risk for property G, raise it to the power of 2. Then plus 2 times weighting of property F times weighting of property G, 1 minus the weighting of F, then times covariance between the two properties. Then you take a square root of the overall term, then get that the overall answer for the risk of these properties portfolio.